So, I just got back from Napa, California, and while I was there, I took some time to reread one of my favorite books. Well, I'm still in the process of reading it, but this book is all about scarcity and how scarcity is a mindset that captures the mind. And while I was there, the first chapter talks about focus and tunneling. So, what I want to do today is translate those concepts to creative fields and tell you how you can use scarcity, focus, and tunneling to your advantage. So, without further ado, let's talk about some nerd stuff. Okay, so while I was in Napa, California, we did a lot of fun things. We did a wine tasting, we went to this overlook vista and got an epic time lapse, we did a sunrise time lapse, we did some cool things. Now, how does scarcity and focus and tunneling apply to this? Well, first, let's just define those really quick. Scarcity is a state of being, so to speak, with limited resources, and scarcity can capture the mind, meaning that it can force us to make decisions that are not necessarily representative of what we would normally do when we were not in a scarce state. It's like making us irrational, so to speak. Now, focus is the ability for a human being to channel their attention and energy to accomplish a specific goal, whether it be photo or video or motion graphics or anything like that. And tunneling is effectively a type of focus where everything in the periphery is forgotten about. And I'm sure you've experienced things like this where you're very focused on one task, but then some things fall to the wayside, like focusing on a deadline, skip the gym. You get the idea. So, how did I apply focus and tunneling to this trip? Well, here are some tips that I want you to take away. So the first thing is that scarcity forces effectiveness. Basically, when you experience limited resources, you have to make the most out of what you have available to you. So I'm going to use this Napa trip, for example. While we did a lot of cool things, we were only there for 36 hours. And because we were only there for 36 hours, I wanted to go in and accomplish two main things. The first one was I wanted to location scout. I want to go to this vista at the very top of Napa Valley and figure out, is this location going to be really good for this future project I have in mind? The second one was I wanted to accomplish 2 time lapses on the trip of Napa Valley. And I felt they were pretty cool. I didn't really know where the sun was going to rise for the morning one, but overall I accomplished my 2 main goals, location scouting and time lapses. And effectively, because I was only there for 36 hours, I had to make the most out of the time I was there, and those were my 2 main goals. Now, the downside is that everything in the periphery, all the beautiful other things, I didn't really think about that. So that's the downside of tunneling. When you are experiencing intense focus on a goal, some things are going to get forgotten about. So there's an opportunity cost between having very intense focus versus allocating and distributing more attention to your energy. So the first thing when it comes to scarcity is that scarcity forces effectiveness, and the way you focus and tunnel on an activity or task or goal will influence the outcome. Okay, the second thing when it comes to focus and scarcity is that effectively scarcity allows us to do things we wouldn't normally do on our own. What do I mean by that? Imagine you're within a tight deadline for a school project, for example. When you're in that deadline and the deadline is imminent, think about your own behaviors. What do? Do you put your phone right next to your desk and just browse it? Or do you actually sit down, focus, write the paper you gotta write, or do the research you gotta research? How do you behave when you're under a tight deadline? And it's the same principle here with creative work or creative content. When you have a tight deadline, then there is some level of risk that you are inheriting with that task. Now you can use that to your advantage. When you have deadlines, then you can make sure that you're allocating your energy in a way that is productive. And one of my favorite ways to do that, just in general, is to have incremental deadlines throughout projects. So even though a big project might be super, super far away as far as the due date, you have incremental deadlines so that you can accomplish things along the way. Now, here's one of the interesting concepts in the book. It says that self-imposed deadlines do not necessarily work because there's some level of risk that other human beings create when another person creates that deadline. But I think it's important to try and force yourself to understand that these milestones, it's not for you, it's for the client, or it's for the person that's going to be consuming this content. And having those self-imposed deadlines will allow you to actually create content in a way that is respectful of the deadlines. So effectively, scarcity allows us to do what we would not normally do, and self-imposed deadlines are a great way to accomplish that. And the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to focus and tunneling is that tunneling is effectively a means of excluding. So one of the quotes from the book, that is from another person, to photograph is to frame, and to frame is to exclude. So when you're looking at a photo, so to speak, you're not looking at everything else that's outside of the frame. Even right now, I got a light right here. I got a microphone right here. My room is a mess over there, but you don't see that because I'm excluding that, and everything that you see is effectively tunnel visioned here. And it's important to understand that concept of tunneling because how is that going to affect your behavior overall and your content overall? So if you are highly focused on one portion of a project, for example, and you're focused on that, what is happening to everything else? In the same way, how you allocate your time and tunnel your time is valuable, but if you're tunneling on things that aren't effectively valuable to your final goal, what's the point? So when it comes to focus, understand what you're focusing on and why you're focusing on that, because having that focus is important so you can actually get things done. But if you focus too hard and focus on the wrong things, you're going to let the truly important things fall to the wayside. So, long story short, scarcity has positives and benefits. You can accomplish more when you are in a scarce environment, but it can also have its downsides by sort of capturing the mind, as the book would say, and forcing you to behave in a way that is not necessarily logical, because what we see in front of us is often what we perceive as the most important. But really, having broad goals with incremental levels of scarcity will allow you to accomplish more and be more intentional with your actions. And that was my biggest takeaway from this chapter. Focus is important, and you can effectively gain something called a focus dividend, the payoffs of very intense focus. But if you go too far down that rabbit hole, you might encounter some ill benefits of scarcity. So I hope you learned something. I enjoy this nerd stuff, and if you enjoy it too, let me know in the comment section down below. And until next time, my name is John Jagsney, and we're talking about scarcity today because I'm a big fat nerd. So have a good one, and I will talk to you, beautiful people, in that next video. Bye.